Alright, hello and welcome viewers from around the world to the first Try Hard NRL betting podcast, formerly known as Two Peanuts in a Podcast. And where do we start? We've got cocaine, lots of cocaine, sniffing it, dealing it, trafficking it, strippers, nightclub brawls. We've got booze, lots of booze, fights.
Yeah, alright mate, but enough about your weekend plans. Do you want to start the pod?
Yep, sounds like a good weekend. Let's start the pod.
Lego!
Lego!
It's been a long time! Oh, it's been a long time, man.
It has been a long time.
Yeah, it's been, what do you reckon, a couple of months since we did our last pod?
It has been a little while now.
Yeah.
We've left the viewers thirsty for more.
So for those of you who don't know, over the summer we did a bit of an underground pod. Just
We
to
did.
hone our skills in the podcasting world. It's a bit new to us.
Yep, absolutely. And we did quite well, actually, for those few loyal listeners that we did have. We had a 12-4 record against the spread, and they were all 50-50 bets, so we made our viewers a bit of money for the summer.
And that's what we want to keep doing this year.
Yep. And I guess to reward those loyal listeners, why don't we start off with a question from one of them. This is from Michael in Hamilton. He says, "Hi guys, I just wanted to say I'm your biggest fan." I think he's probably up against a bit of stiff competition there. "I listened to you guys all summer. You gave out winning tips like it was your job. In fact, it's thanks to the pod that I have enough money to live in Hamilton." Fancy.
That's what we love to hear.
"I don't know how you managed to be so witty and humorous whilst also being so insightful at the same time. But please keep up the good work."
Well, thanks. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, thanks for that, Michael.
That's
And
uplifting.
look, that's what we do here. Some of them, choose to do what they will with their money. Live in nice places like Hamilton. Some of them will buy their missus, nice bath mats, take them out to fancy dinners. But that's what we're about, making
Foot
people
rub
money.
here or there?
Yep.
Yeah. So tonight we might start by previewing the season. This is the real deal now, 2015 NRL season. So we want to share our thoughts on all 16 teams with you tonight. Give a few pointers here and there where we're going to be looking to make money, whose stock we're buying, whose stock we're selling. We also want to answer as many viewer questions as we can tonight as well.
Yeah, we always want to keep the viewers. They're loyal to us, so we want to give something back.
So just before we start previewing the teams, I just want to say if we don't get to your questions tonight, please don't be discouraged. I mean, we've been absolutely inundated. Actually, I mean,
It's been crazy. My inbox is full.
I was going to say it's been a whirlwind, like a couple of months. I mean, you look back. 2 months ago, we were doing a podcast. We had about 5 listeners.
Yeah,
at
at the very most,
and
5.
We've literally got tens of fans now.
We've got our own Facebook page. We've got our own YouTube channel. It's just going crazy.
Coming soon to SoundCloud.
Yep.
So we're going bunter. And the only way is up.
That's it.
So why don't we start with the wooden spoon from last year?
We can certainly do that, and that is actually our dear friend Michael from Hamilton's favourite team, the Cronulla Sharks. And as it is a betting podcast, I'll just quickly let you know for each team what their odds are. If you're planning on making a quick punt, what their odds are of winning the whole thing, what their odds are of making the 8. So the Sharks, first of all, they're 34-1 to actually win the whole thing. And they are $1.70, so actually under $2 to make the 8. Sack it, kick us off.
Well, I mean, everything went wrong for them last year. I mean, you had, straight off the bat, injuries to Fafita, Gallen and Luke Lewis, all guys that played for Australia. We had Todd Carney bringing new meaning to getting on the piss. I mean, never-ending saga with the SADA, the use of peptides. It was a season from hell, and they did finish with the wooden spoon.
It was a season to forget.
But I really think that they can flip it around this year. I mean, they've still got a hell of a team on paper. I've got question marks about some of these guys, like Gallen, like Fafita. Is there best football behind them? But there's other young stars on this team. Like keep your eye out for a back row, Wade Graham. I think he's going to have a real up year. They've also signed Benny Barber at 5'8".
Yep.
And Mick Ennis. Polarising character, to say the least. But the guy still gets through 80 minutes of work, makes a lot of tackles. We're not necessarily the biggest fans of his leadership, but I think he does make them slightly better. So, and I've got an inside source at the Shire which tells me watch out for Valentine Holmes on the wing. My mate says he's a Val by name and by nature. Outside backs were this team's weakness last year. I'm going to say they'll make the 8 this year.
It's a bold call. And I'm going to say they're just going to miss out. They have recruited well. As you said, they've obviously got Benny Barber coming in, Mick Ennis, a few other guys coming into the team. They haven't lost too much. Obviously, that stain, Bo Ryan is out of there. You've got Isaac De Gois and Bryce Gibbs coming into the team. I'm going to pick them to just miss out on the 8. So shall we move on to the second last place team, the Canberra Raiders. Now, if you're thinking of placing a punt on this, you'd be pretty stupid. But anyway, to make the 8, they're $4.50. And to win the whole thing, you can get as high as $151.
Now, something we want to try and teach you guys as professional bettors is what we need to look for is the ugly duckling in the flock.
That's exactly right.
In the gander.
In the litter.
In the litter.
In the coop.
In the coop. Look at the bottom of the ladder. That's where everyone thinks they'll find the bad teams. That's a perception that teams at the bottom of the ladder are bad. But sometimes you've got to look a little deeper. There could be a lot of other factors for what they're doing down there. And sometimes you've got to ask yourself, is this team actually, quietly, a lot better than everybody thinks?
And you think that team is the Raiders this year?
No, that's not how I feel about the Raiders. I mean, who's on this team? Who is on this team?
Absolute guff.
Josh Papali's an absolute beast. I like Croker. Fensom's a workhorse, but they lost Leroy Lars, and just in the last 3 years, they lost Todd Carney, Josh Dugan, Blake Ferguson, and Anthony Milford. They'd be a good team if they had those guys. I can't see them anywhere other than the foot of the table, I'm sorry to say.
They're going to be close to the wooden spoon, I tend to agree.
Yep.
Alright, moving on. Gold Coast Titans. Now, if you're wanting to put a punt on them, now the Titans are set. You can get as high as $7.50 for them to make the 8, and you can get as high as 251 to 1 for them to win the whole thing. Worth a punt?
I mean, we can ask, will they make the 8? Will they even be in the comp next year? I mean, it's absolute crisis.
One of us might be playing for them.
Yeah.
In the way things
can
are
only
going.
hope. They've got, latest I count, 6 players implicated in the drug scandal. You've got Dave the Coke Train Taylor. You've got 5-5 Break the Law. I mean, you've got Greg Bird, who plays for Australia, who potentially won't be on that team. And they lost Ashley Harrison and Mark Minicello to retirement. It's really not looking good for them. I was looking to Ryan James to really have a breakout year in the back row. And in the halves with Caesar and Kelly, that's not bad. I like Nate Miles. But really, this team, maybe with the scandal, they galvanise, they pull together and they grind out some games. But this team could fall apart this season. I'll be very careful putting any money on them.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree. And they have recruited Hoffman from the Bronx, but is it going to be enough to make them, sneak into the 8?
Yeah,
I don't
probably
think so.
not when he gets injured every third tackle.
Yeah, that's true. All right, now we're on to my good mate Pete Evans, not the chef, his favourite team, the West Tigers.
Shout out to Pete.
Shout out to Pete. Now $3.25 to make the 8, and what can we see here? We've got 41 to 1 for the tourney.
And I mean, last season was also a season from hell for the Tigers. They're absolutely injury ravaged. We've got Brooks in the halves, and he is special. Telling you now, keep your eye on this kid if you haven't seen him play. Good. He's a future star. You've still got Robbie Farah at hooker. I think he's still the best hooker in the game, but it's just a very young team. I still like Aaron Woods in the front row, and I think this side can be a little tougher than people expect, but there's just not enough talent that I can see to win consistently.
I agree, and they were a young team last year, and you sort of always thought, well, they're always going to get better. They might be a tad bit better this year, but is it really going to be to cut it to make it to the finals? I don't think so.
We don't think so.
All right.
Why don't we take a viewer question now? We've got through the bottom 4 from last year.
Yeah, we always like to reward the viewers, and we get so many questions sent in to us. It's tough to pick the best, but we really did like this one. So we've got a viewer question from Lisa in Darwin. It's all the way up there on the north tip. Good on you, Lisa. Now she says, "Hi guys, love the pod. I really enjoy watching rugby, but I don't really know that much about the players. When I bet, I simply bet which mascot I think will beat the other. For example, a cowboy would beat a Rabbitoh. Makes sense. If you had to rank teams from best to worst in order of mascot, what would the rankings be?"
That's an interesting question.
Lisa, that is a tricky one. And I guess the first thing you have to think about is home field advantage. Because, I mean, if you have a Shark, playing a Rabbitoh, obviously home field advantage is going to make a big difference. And that could alter the outcome greatly. Sharks not going to do an awful. Not going to do awfully well in a burrow.
I feel like with that in mind, she must be picking a lot of home teams.
I would agree. Yeah, I tend to agree. So with that in mind, Lisa, we've done a little bit of research and we've actually grouped the teams into, or what we think would be the fairest matchups in my opinion. Now, in the first grouping, we've got your cats and dogs. So we've got the Doggies, the Tigers, and the Panthers. Now, who do you reckon would come out of these three?
So just these three?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've got to pick the mascot that would win.
The mascot that would win. And you've got to sort of say, this is not going to be... I tend to think of it... Let's not think of it as a one-on-one battle. It's more of a group battle. They're all on the same turf.
Okay, sort of Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you'd have to think that the two cats would team up against the dog, so I couldn't see the dog getting through that.
No, you wouldn't think so.
If I had to compare a tiger to a panther, probably give the edge to a panther just with a bit more agility.
Well, the thing is, if you've got some trees in the neighbourhood and that sort of thing, panthers are much better climbers. They'd just launch an aerial attack on that tiger, and I think the panther would come out of that group.
More moves in their arsenal.
Oh, definitely. Plus, if it was, if it's a night match, the Panthers going to blend in a little bit. I think I'd give them the edge there.
Yeah.
Now, next we've got your marine mascots. Now, these are your underwater friends. We've got the sharks and the eels. Now, this all sort of depends. I mean, obviously, you think of just a regular eel. You think the shark will just take a big chunk out of it.
Would it be an electric eel?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. It could make a huge difference.
Yeah.
But they're not the Parramatta electric eels.
No.
So,
okay. Well, you've got me thinking as well. It's like sharks are really deadly in the open water and out in the sea, whereas like an eel's going to be far better suited to more of a murky lake, I'd say. But I just feel like, how is an eel actually going to beat a shark? I feel like the eel's going to have to play mistake-free.
I think the top length that they get is maybe a couple metres. They're not even going to wrap themselves around the waist of the shark.
No.
It's
they can
a done
find
deal.
an entrance where they can, but
finding an entrance
where
they can.
You give the edge to the shark in that one.
Yep, I have the sharks coming out of that group. Now this is an interesting one. The mascots of flight. We've got the roosters, the seagulls, and the dragons.
Can roosters fly?
Well,
should we check that? Anyway, interrupting.
That's the thing. I don't think it matters, to be honest.
No, I mean, that sounds pretty one-sided to me. Okay, the birds would definitely team up.
Yes.
What, they could go for the eyes? Could they try and claw the eyes out?
Yeah, let's say a rooster can fly. If anything, it can just sort of hover for about 10 seconds. It's not going to be able to launch an aerial assault on the dragon and peck its eyes. The seagull, maybe, if there's a flock of them, but there's just one.
Yeah, no, that's right.
The dragon's just going to fry them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to turn into KFC pretty quickly, I reckon.
Val, I want the dragon coming out of that group just so I can munch down on a bucket of...
I love KFC.
A bucket of rooster afterwards. I do love KFC. Maybe we should get them on board as a sponsor. Now
KFC, if you're out there.
We've got the cavalry mascots next. We've got the Cowboys, the Broncos, and the Knights.
I mean, a cowboy would have an edge over a bronco, right? So, I mean, I'd have to take the cowboy.
Well, definitely. I mean, it harnesses the Bronco's power, and it does have, it's going to be on top of the Bronco, taking it from on top.
Okay, now we've got a cowboy versus a knight. So, does the cowboy have a gun?
Well, I think that's really... That it totally depends on whether it has a gun or not.
I actually think he has a whip.
I think most cowboys have a gun at their disposal.
Yep.
Whether they're allowed it onto the battlefield is another question.
Yeah, well, if he's got a gun, I'll take the cowboy. If he doesn't, I'll take the knight.
Yeah, I would agree. It all sort of depends as well on how big the field is.
The knight's also got a jousting stick.
Well, that's right, yeah. And I mean, it does, it has the jousting stick. If it's a small field, the cowboy takes one shot, perhaps hits some armour, and the knight just spears him through spears him straight through the chest.
Yeah, cowboy's dreaming.
I think, well, it's a toss-up whether the cowboy or the knight's coming out.
I'm happy to put the knight through on that one.
I'm happy to put it through. Next, we've got your battle mascots, and this is probably one of the tougher groups to come out of.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which teams that is.
We've got the Raiders, we've got the Warriors, and we've got the Titans.
So to me, the Raiders aren't really a battle-hardened kind of character. They're really more hunter-gatherers, aren't they? Kind of pillage a village.
Yeah, well, the issue is that their weapons are so antique. They haven't really gone, ahead with the times,
Yeah.
like the Warriors have.
I think they'll be mincemeat pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah. Now, Warrior, he's a battle-hardened, troop. But in saying that, the Titans are God.
That's true.
Can you really beat a God?
No. The Warrior's going to beat the Raider easily, and then the Titan is going to destroy the Warrior.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen? The Titan's just going to chill in the sky, watch the Warrior and the Raider battle it out. One of them will be tired, and then he'll just send down the lightning bolt and fucking kill him.
Easy win for the Titans.
Yep, I agree. Alright, we've only got 2 teams left. Now, this is your wild card. They don't really fit into anywhere else. We've got the Bunnies and the Storm.
Well, Bunnies and Storm. So obviously the Storm can strike the Rabbit.
They've got one weapon, really.
The lightning
that's rain and lightning.
Yeah.
It does frighten the Rabbit.
I'm thinking the Rabbit could kind of burrow away and hide.
It could burrow under. I don't know if a Storm's ever killed a rabbit.
Then again,
unless
he
it was
could
a
flood
severe
him out.
flood.
Yeah.
Well, that's the issue with the burrow.
Yeah. And I don't see a way for the Bunny to beat the Storm. Bunny's probably one of the weaker.
I think it'd be a long battle.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think the Bunny would drown.
Okay, so the Storm's through.
So the Storm's through there. Look, what do you think the two top team mascots coming out of there are?
So how many teams did we pick? So
we picked 6 teams.
Panthers, Sharks, Dragons, Knights, Titans, Storm. So then do you throw them all in an arena? How does it work?
Yeah, look, you could. Well, even if you threw them all in an arena, I think that the Storm would take out a few of them.
It's really hard, and this is a betting lesson for everyone. It's really hard to handicap weather. I'm kind of envisioning a scenario where the Storm floods the arena and drowns everyone but the Shark.
Mm-hmm.
Although then again, as we said before, Titan is a god, so he could definitely control the weather.
Yeah.
So the Storm couldn't win that.
Well, that's right, yeah. And the thing is, even if the Storm flooded it, the Shark survives for a little bit, but then the Storm just stops. And the ground dries up and the Shark is toast.
Yeah, so the Dragon's going to burn a few of them.
Yeah, I think the Dragon's going to struggle against the Titan.
So it's a Dragon-Titan final. Well, you can't kill a god.
No, you just can't.
So we have our answer?
The Titan's coming out of that.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
There's your answer, Lisa.
Yep, there's your answer, Lisa. So
hold on, sorry. I've just read, and the Titan failed the drug test.
Oh, no. Should we start again?
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe next week.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Lisa. We didn't really answer your question.
Yeah, but if you're going straight on mascots, I think you get some good value with the Titans there. You can get 251 to 1.
Keep that in mind. Let's move back to the Newcastle Knights.
Let's get on to the Knights. All right, Newcastle Knights. $34 you can get for them to win the comp, and $2. Well, you can get them as high as 3 to make the 8. Doesn't sound too bad to me.
Look, I'm a really big fan of the Knights. Shout out to Tommy Howarth.
Mm-hmm.
That's his team.
Yep.
I'm a huge fan of Jared Mullen. The guy's had a few injuries. The guy really hasn't shown his best footy yet. I think he can have a huge season. I'm also haven't given up on Kurt Gidley yet, and that guy's possibly made of glass, but when he's fit, he can be really quality, whether he's playing at fullback or at halfback. I think this is actually a really sweet backline. Uarte had his struggles under the high ball, got dropped out of Origin, but he's still absolute class player who can find the try line. Yep. Guys like McManus have played Origin. For me, the forwards are a bit thin. But a couple of guys like Cade Snowden, who has actually played for Australia in there, this is a team I'm definitely looking to play on. I'm this close to putting them in the 8. I just can't quite put them all the way up from 12th last year into the 8. But this is a team I'm definitely looking to bet on this year. I really like the Knights.
Yeah. How much of an effect do you think Bennett leaving has?
Well, last season was really disrupted. You had the Alex McKinnon that really rattled the club.
It was an emotional season for him.
No, I still think there's a lot of veteran players and enough leadership in that club, and that he would have passed on some good habits. And I still think that team can be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, they've lost a few pieces, but have they lost that much? They've lost Willie Mason, who's old. They've lost Darius Boyd, who's an injured.
That could be addition by subtraction.
Yeah, true. And they've gained a few good pieces. I mean, Tarek Sims is good from the Cowboys,
and those Mataudia brothers came out of nowhere. One of them, I haven't figured out which one's which yet, but one of them made the Australia team last year. They're good, and the Knights have a couple of those brothers in the team.
Yeah. So moving on to the Dragons. Now you can get the Dragons, let's see here, you can get them as high as 57 to 1 to win the comp, and you can get them as high as $3.50 to make the 8.
I actually like both of those. I've got to say, yeah, the Dragons were in the hunt for the 8 last year, and they actually had a few injuries. You had Josh Dugan only join the team mid-season. Benji Marshall only joined the team mid-season. Both those guys have had a full pre-season together with the team. I really like that halves combination.
Yep.
Benji looked good in the club challenge in England. Yep, Widdop is quality at 5'8". Nielsen's a good pickup just to strengthen the centres. I mean, they lost Brett Morris, which hurts.
It's a big loss,
but they've also got one of the Mataudia brothers. And I really am expecting a huge year from Tyson Frizzell, or as I call him, T Frizzle.
Yep, T Frizzle.
So I think he's posed for an enormous year. Trent Merrin is maybe the best back row in the comp, in my opinion. Mitch Rain's a good hooker. So, like I said, I've actually got them finishing 6th this year, which I know is going to be a controversial opinion.
Yep, no, it's a big call. And they've added a few little pieces. They've got Heath Lestrange coming over from the Roosters. Big Georgie Rose, who is, he's not really a big piece, you would say.
But he's got a muscle.
Yeah, adds a bit of muscle in there.
Adds size, that's what I'd say.
They've lost a few pieces. Beale, Jack Bird, Cole Stanley to the Sharks, and Brett Morris, obviously, to the Bulldogs. But I think, they could have a little bit better season than they did last year, but in saying that, I don't know if they'll be good enough to make the 8. Now, moving on to the Eels. What have we got here? The Eels, you can get them as high as 41 to 1 to win the comp, and you can get them as high as 325 to make the 8. But without Jared Stain, what are they going to do?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, last year, they actually had a really good year, but they had this guy called Jared Hayne playing fullback. I don't know if you've heard of him. Like, you never see any stories about him. Yeah, he's a bit of a low-profile kind of guy. But he actually won the Dally M last year and scored 20 tries. So it's funny that we haven't heard about him. I don't see how they can replace that, to be honest.
I did actually read an article the other day. I think it might have been from over in America or something, and there was a college scout, an NFL scout that saw him doing all the training for the combine. And I'm not sure why he would be doing that sort of stuff. But they said he'd be one of the top 5, NFL running backs. Crazy that we haven't heard of him.
We'll keep our eye out for him. But that's a lot of pressure on Chris Sandow, because he doesn't have the play that he used to have in his arsenal, which was throw the ball to Hayne.
Yep.
Now he's actually going to have to create stuff. They did also add Anthony Rotmo.
Yep, right.
But yeah, it's a decent team, some good young back rowers. Love the winger, Semi Radradra. He's a good first try scorer, bet.
Yes, indeed.
No,
fastest man alive.
They'll be in the bottom half of the comp, I'm afraid to say.
I tend to agree. Now we're going over the ocean, visiting New Zealand Warriors. $1.70 to make the 8, and as you can get as high as 17 for them to win the comp.
Yeah, anything's possible with this team. I think it's such a Jekyll and Hyde side. They can look like world beaters one week, and they can look like an absolute bunch of clowns the next week. I'm a big fan of Tompkins at fullback. Johnson really found another level in the Four Nations last year when New Zealand won. That guy's legit. They're always going to be good at home. But I'm looking beyond those couple of guys, and I don't really see a lot of good players. And I'm just wondering, are we sure they're good?
Well, I guess we're not entirely sure, and they're always a team that's going to be up and down. They're always there, sort of on the cusp of the 8. They've added Ryan Hoffman, who's going to be a good little addition, but they have lost Felipe Mateo, who's a little bit of a beast, and Carlos Tumavave. But in saying that, I think they're going to be close to the 8. I might actually tip them to sneak in there at 8th spot.
I mean, they made the grand final in 2011 with a really young side, and you kind of thought they're only going to get better, they're going to become a juggernaut, but I just didn't see that improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually going to say they missed the 8. I've got them 9th.
All right. Now, we'll take a little bit of a break. And
So what do we got next? Rapid fire questions?
Rapid fire questions we've got next, which will just be, we'll get through them in a matter of seconds. But before we need to do that, a word from our sponsors.
Need to kickstart your own pre-season training? The Try Hard NRL Betting Podcast is proudly sponsored by F-Sanity, the Performance Athletic Association specialising in functional and sports-specific training. Find and follow F-Sanity on Instagram today.
Shout out to F Sanity.
Shout out to F Sanity, and that we couldn't really do this pod without our sponsors. This takes a lot of money to set up. Recording this in a fairly expensive studio.
As you can understand, there's high production costs.
Yeah, and just getting the word out there. But we're happy to have F Sanity on board, and hopefully we'll have a few more soon.
Train abstain or remain a stain.
Yep. So now we'll get into our rapid fire questions. We'll get through these fairly quickly. But we have a question from a viewer, Michael in Hamilton again. He's a very loyal listener to the pod. Now he asks, if every player who ever did coke was banned for 2 years, would we still have a competition?
That's a tough question, Michael. I'd say yes, we would, but you and I might be playing in it.
Yep, I tend to agree.
I've got a question here from Pete Evans from Brisbane, in brackets, not the chef. How many players would you say will be suspended for use of cocaine this season? Where would you set the over-under?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a tough one, because you think there's, cocaine's only one drug, and I'd say that the majority of the NRL, players are using some sort of drug or another. Not all of them will get caught, only, the tiny minority of them will get caught. So I'd set the line at probably 6.5 players to get suspended for cocaine use this season.
We'll have to see how that goes.
We've got another question from Bob in Sydney. He says, how are Brisbane fitting Milford under the salary cap? Oh, that's right. They don't have one.
Well, that's really more of a statement from Bob.
Yeah, it is more of a statement, Bob.
I've
Next
got
time
another...
you might want to put that more of it in a question form.
Got another question here. This is from Sarah, fashion designer in Melbourne. Great that we're reaching even the southern states. We're not rugby league heartland down there.
Yep.
Now, Sarah wants to know, white and gold or blue and black?
Blue and black. It's not even a question.
You're off your head. It was white
blue
and gold.
Black.
It's white and gold.
Mate, it's blue or black.
Are you...
Moving on.
We could do a pod about that.
Yeah, we could spend 40 minutes on this.
Let's go. Next question.
Black and gold. Black and blue. Alright, Liam in Melbourne says, what's the biggest bet either of you have ever put on a single game?
Probably rather not answer that.
I probably wouldn't either.
Yeah. Alright, shall we preview our beloved Brisbane Broncos?
The Brisbane Broncos. Now, we try and stay neutral here.
For full disclosure, we're not trying to hide anything. We're both from Brisbane.
Yep.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. And we've been following the Broncos for a number of years now. But we'll try and remain as neutral as possible. What
I always say is, when it comes to betting on Broncos games, I love my team, but I love money more.
Yep. No, that's a good philosophy to live by. Now, if you love the Bronx as much as we do, and you also don't really love money, you could put a bet on them, 15-1 to win the comp, $1.60 to make the 8.
We've got a new coach, we've got a new star. What I'm going to say about the Broncos is look to bet against them early. It's a new system that Bennett's going to have to implement again. You've got a new, centerpiece. You've got Milford at 5'8". It's going to take time to gel. It's a really good team on paper, but I'm going to look for them to start really slowly. I'm going to be betting against the Broncos early. However, looking at that roster, guys like McCulloch, Glenn, Gillette, Maguire, these are quality players that are all the right side of 30. I think they're all going to improve. We're a little skinny in front row. We lost Martin Kennedy, but Thaiday plays full-time front row. I still believe in that guy to give us another good season. I'm going to say, call me biased, I've got them sneaking into the 8.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I do love the Bronx as well, but there has been a big reshuffle, and any time you have a big reshuffle, I guess sort of like the Sharks this year, you can add all the pieces together and you can look at the roster all you like, but at the end of the day, it is a little bit about chemistry, as it is in most sports, and that takes a little bit of time. Obviously, they've lost Barber, they've lost Hannant, and they've lost Hoffman, but they've picked up a few good pieces. So I think, look, I probably have them just missing the 8 as much as I would love to see them make it. Moving on to...
And we deliberately didn't speak about the drug allegations with the Broncos.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Move on. Now, moving on to the Doggies. You can get them at $8.50 to win the comp, and only a measly $1.30 to make the 8.
It's an awesome back line. We've got the Morris brothers reunited. It's a hell of a forward pack. James Graham, led by James Graham, Aiden Tolman, Josh Jackson, T-Rex. Des Hasler's made 3 of the last 4 grand finals. And as we said before, we don't think the loss of Ennis is going to hurt that much. I've got this as a top 4 side.
I agree. Alright. we sort of need to speed things up a little bit, so we'll go through the rest a little bit quicker. We've got the Melbourne Storm. You can get them 15-1 to win the comp, and $1.62 to make the 8, the ageing Storm.
It's still a good team on paper. I don't want to say anything bad. Cooper Cronk's one of my favourite players. Billy Slater hasn't been the same elite guy for 3 years. I just don't know if everyone's realised that. Cameron Smith, can we still expect the same high level from him either? I think this could be a down year for the Storm. I think every year they get a little bit weaker, they lose one guy. I've got them missing the 8 this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And they've lost a few pieces that, they've lost Ryan Hoffman, who's an absolute workhorse, Reece Kennedy, Cesar Wonga, and Big Georgie Rose, and there's little pieces like that, and they're getting older every year. I've got them missing the 8 as well. Moving on to the NQ Cowboys. Shout out to Jeremy Van Dyke. JVD. Now you can get the Cowboys as high as 13, Jezza, if you want to place a bet on that. And you can also find them at $1.45 to make the 8.
So we've got Jonathan Thurston, 31 years old. I'm still confident that he is the best in the game, but his window to win a title is closing. Last year, they didn't get 1 minute out of Lachlan Coote. He's a hell of a player. Look for him to really carve up this year at fullback. Most of all, Jason Taumalolo. Jason Taumalolo is a grown man. The guy is 21 years old. He's been with the Cowboys for 5 years. The guy is enormous.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that, I think it was on Wikipedia, that he weighs 110 kilos.
Which one of his butt cheeks are you talking about? The guy is 130 kilos minimum, and he runs like the wind.
Atlanta. All right, yeah, I have the Cowboys probably sneaking into the top 4 this year. They've lost a few pieces. They've lost the Sims brothers. Curtis Rona's off to the Bulldogs, and obviously Brent Tate retiring. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I haven't hidden my fact that I don't think Brent Tate is a great player. I'll
agree with you. That's a genuine contender there.
Yeah. Now, should we move on to one more viewer question, perhaps?
Yeah, I've got a viewer question here. This one's from Joshua in Perth. So reaching right out into the Wild West. And it's a bit of a long question here, but I think it's worthwhile. So Josh says, Steggles is the major sponsor for the greatest NRL team this century. Debatable.
Yeah.
It's also a well-known fact that various other chicken products are life's greatest gift, i.e. Nando's, KFC, chicken nuggets, chicken salt, chicken gravy, chicken wings, chicken burgers, chicken drumsticks, chicken breast, bacon. My question is, he's got a question.
Finally.
How do any of the other NRL teams stand a chance against such a free-range foundation recipe for success? Chicken is life. Life is chicken.
I do love KFC. I probably love all of the chicken pieces that he's talked about there. I think the main thing that he's probably getting at is, by naming all those, is just the versatility of chicken. And it is a fairly versatile food. But if you're saying that it's the absolute, most versatile food, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to argue that. And on top of that, just because a food's, a certain type of meat is the most versatile, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best. Plus, chicken isn't even the most versatile food. Pork is. You've got ham, you've got pork, pork on the bone, you've got pork shoulder, you've got bacon, the greatest food of all.
They don't all come from one creature.
One creature.
Well, one magical creature. I think that's tall poppy syndrome by you.
Yeah, well,
I actually think he's made some really good points there, really well articulated as well.
Yeah, and although I guess his argument is that chicken is, simply the best meat. And now the problem is with that when everyone knows you're the best, they try even harder to tear you down. Every single time they're going to be coming at that chicken.
That is true.
Plus, Nando's burns a hole in my ring.
Why don't we review the Penrith Panthers?
Let's review the Penrith Panthers. Alright. Penrith Panthers, great season last season. You can get them as high as 12-1 to win the comp, and as high as $1.48 to make the 8.
Well, they're making the 8. I really like $12. This is the team I think probably wins the comp this year. I do see one absolute superstar in this team, and that's Matt Moylan. There's a question mark whether he'll even play Origin this year, because there is a guy, Josh Dugan, in front of him. But even though there's no, incumbent Origin players on this team, it's just so solid across the board. There's a guy called Walker Blake. Watch out for him. We haven't even heard of this guy. He's going to be an absolute standout at centre. But just everywhere. We've got Seguiaro really lifting as one of the best hookers in the game. We've got halves, Peter Wallace and Jamie Soward, both have played Origin. The forward pack doesn't wow you with the names on paper. It's
solid though.
But it's unbelievably solid. They had a lot of injuries last year. Guys like Tyrone Peachy, guys like Elijah Taylor were out for the season. They still made it all the way to the preliminary. That's with injuries. I think they're going to win the minor premiership. I think not having Origin players helps them through the middle of the season. I think they're going to make the minor premiership. Probably going to make the grand final.
Look, I think you're certainly right. They're going to make a run this year. But in saying that, I still think that teams like the Roosters and the Rabbits, they're well versed, they're well coached. They're still going to be up there. But I definitely do think that the Panthers will be top 4 this year. They have lost Wes and Kevin Nguama, and if they can get through those first few weeks of the comp, they've got Idris out. He's had back surgery. He might be out for the first 4 to 6 weeks, they reckon. But once they're fully healthy, they're going to be a threat.
Watch out.
Moving on, the Rabbits. Now you can get the Rabbits. They're actually favourites to win the comp. You can get them as high as 6-1, and not really much value, but $1.25 to make the 8.
Not a hell of a lot of value. They lost, obviously, Sam Burgess and Ben Teo, but they did bring in Glenn Stewart and Tim Grant, who I think are both very good replacements. Still some key players in that team, like Isaac Luke and Adam Reynolds and Chris McQueen, that are only going to get better. And Luke Keary as well at 5'8", the Queenslander there. They won the Auckland Nines, which does say something to me. You don't want to look too hard at that, but it shows that there's a bit of focus in this squad.
Definitely. And not everyone sends their best players to the Auckland Nines, but it still tells you something.
They're going to come back with a purpose. My only question is GI still going to be as good? He's just got a lot of miles on those legs. I mean, he went all the way through the finals, premiership, 4 Nations, played the All-Star game this year. He's going to be playing the Anzac Test. He's going to be playing 3 Origins. And you expect him to go all the way through and win another grand final. That's asking a lot of a guy who has had knee injuries.
Yeah. Now we were talking about the Rabbits a little bit earlier in the week, weren't we? We saw that they were dogs for the Broncos, and as much as we love the Broncos, the Rabbits were $2 to win that game. So we both went ahead and played that. And sure enough,
Rabbitohs,
I mean it's
plus 1.5.
Plus 1.5 points we got.
And we'll explain lines and odds a little more next week when we preview round 1.
Yeah, we'll get into the betting side of things next week. But we went ahead and played that, and sure enough, what happened over in the World Club Challenge over in England, South Sydney absolutely ravaged. They won, I think, 49-0. And obviously the odds came down slightly, but now Brisbane's been embroiled in the drug scandal, and all those things led to another, and now what can you find the Rabbits at? $1.60.
Yeah.
Minus, laying 4 points.
We'll talk about that as well, about when the value's gone in the game. You don't just blindly play sides.
Yep.
But that's a bit more of a snippet to next week.
We'll go in depth with that next week. Moving on, the Sea Eagles. Now, the Sea Eagles, you can get them as high as 15-1. They finished last season second in the regular season. You can get them as high as 15 to win the comp, and you can get them as high as $1.67 to make the 8. This is a team that's on the down.
Did you just hear that?
Nope.
I think that's the wheels falling off the Manly Sea Eagles.
Yep.
I heard Foreign's going to the Eels.
Yep.
Cherry Evans is choosing between the Sharks and the Titans. I mean, this all started when they couldn't find any money to pay Glenn Stewart.
Not even give him an offer.
Who's one of their most important players is Brett Stewart at fullback. I just don't know what that does for the chemistry of the team. They lost Watmo, who is another, real heart and soul of that team. They lost King, who was a captain of that team, to retirement. A lot of key players on that side. Stewart, Lyon, Matai, they're all a year older. There's still some talent on this side. I like Matt Ballin, I like Jamie Bureau, I like Tom Simons. And they picked up Fleety Mateo.
Yep.
But, there's warning signs on this team. I would not put my money anywhere near this team because I just don't know if Cherry Evans and Foreign have signed for other clubs.
Yep.
Is their heart still there? Why do they want to leave so much? This side came second last year.
Yep.
I'm going to make a bold prediction. They don't make the 8 this year.
And I tend to be with you on that one. And the thing is, you're right, it all did start when you couldn't even muster the money to offer Glenn Stewart a contract. And the whole thing with the Manly Sea Eagles, they had a good group together. And the reason why was that they obviously thought they were going to keep everyone there. They didn't even offer Glenn Stewart a contract. Straight after that happened, there was a few guys that wanted out. Matai wanted out, and I know a few others. But I mean, if this is going on, Foran's thinking of leaving, Cherry Evans is thinking of leaving. You can look at the team on paper as much as you want, but the chemistry is just, it might not be there. So, and that's a reason I'm probably going to stay away from them until, I can see something out of them. Last one, Sydney Roosters. Shout out to my boy, Heathy.
Heathy and Westy.
Over in Heathy and Westy. Yeah, Heathy's all the way over in Emerald, and Heathy and Westy on the West Coast. Now, you can get the Roosters as high as $6.50. They're second favourites to win the comp. And $1.25 to make the 8.
And I think they're going to be right there. Lost a couple of key players. Lost Sonny Bill, lost Minicello, but they've got some good replacements. I mean, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck moved straight into fullback. I mean, he's going to absolutely carve up this year.
Yeah.
They bring in Blake Ferguson, who was setting the league on fire. Made Origin before he got banned. He really is a star player in an already star-studded backline.
Yeah. Is he going to be playing straight away though?
He'll surely fit straight into the centres with Jennings.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose you've got Kenny Dowell. I think maybe they'll slide Kenny Dowell across to the wing. Then you've got Maloney and Pearce in the halves. Say what you want about those guys, but they're really good at NRL level. And that back row is what I love the most. Boyd Cordner and Aiden Guerra, two of the best up-and-coming back rows in the game. That team, I think it's a top 2 team.
I agree.
I've got them second and probably making the grand final.
I agree. I've got them making the grand final as well. And the thing is, I guess it happens, well, let's talk about South. And it happens sometimes in the NFL. It happens with many sports. And in the NFL, they call it a Super Bowl hangover. The same sort of thing happens. You get fat and happy after you win the, a championship. That's not going to happen with the Roosters. I bet my life that they were, very, very disappointed with how they went last year. They're going to be hungry this year, and I have them, finishing top 2 and making the final.
So who's your grand final right now?
My grand final right now, well, as I said, the Roosters, and I've got the Doggies making the final once again.
Yeah, and it's obviously really early, and this is just, as a gambler, you've got to be able to adapt, and you can't be stubborn with what your opinion is. But right now, I've got the Penrith Panthers, the men from the mountain, winning the title over the Roosters in the grand final.
Bold prediction. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, that'll probably do us.
That will do it for this week. Yep.
Yeah.
Good start to the year for the pod.
Yeah. Look out for the round 1 preview coming out next week. We're releasing on a Wednesday night.
Yep. And you can use all that information to make yourself a boatload of money.
Yep. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and please gamble responsibly.
Yeah. So, Zach, how much are you thinking of putting on this? Oh, you probably won't put that much on anymore.
Oh, put a few thousand.
Probably thinking of about 3,000.
Yeah.